thank you for inviting me to this forum. I very much look forward to your questions. So let's get into this topic without further ado, and I'm hoping that this will provide a link between the Euro-BioImaging and the topic of today, archaeology and art, because what I am looking at is bioarchaeology, the remains of past humans. Particularly today, I will focus on the topic of applications of synchrotron-enabled imaging, a number of different techniques in aiding us to answer key questions about the past populations, and particularly in the Eastern Mediterranean and Middle East. So let's look at briefly what human bioarchaeology is. That may not be something that you're already familiar with, so I thought let's start by looking at what that contains. It's the study of human remains from archaeological contexts, so our ancestors, if you like. And this particular field of inquiry emphasizes integrative, interdisciplinary, and I would even hazard saying transdisciplinary analysis in this context, looking at imaging and looking at particularly synchrotron radiation-enabled imaging, linking biology and culture in the effort to understand past societies. Really, it's about looking at a range of social, behavioral, and economic conditions and circumstances that have shaped our society, our human experience through time. Really, if one thinks about it, resulted in our current civilizations, our way of life as we know it. And particularly interesting in this context is the connection between the, let's say, hard sciences, natural sciences, as well as the study of culture. Why should you care? Why should we care about this particular domain? There are different ways in which we can think about it as being relevant, apart from what I already mentioned in terms of our common past history, if you like. If we look at the trajectory, the brief history of synchrotron-enabled techniques being and beginning to be used in human bioarchaeological inquiry, the challenges and potential in it. These highlight the need that exists still in many domains, the user community building, as well as infrastructure development, both in terms of the national strategic infrastructures, but also transnational infrastructures such as synchrotrons and beyond. And it also gives us headway to looking at the importance of regional and transnational collaboration. We can also look at it from a different angle, as in relation to UN Sustainable Development Goals. Although it might not be immediately clear, many of the UN Sustainable Development Goals can be addressed in part by looking at the remains of past people using synchrotron radiation. We can gain valuable insights in deep time, if you like, in terms of these domains, critical for our well-being today, the long historical and archaeological perspective being important. So we can think about, for example, human metal use and metal exposure, both in the past and present. And there are a number of these development goals within which there are aspects that can be explored, whether gender, equality, clean water, good health and well-being, inequalities, and so on and so forth. I think the key thing here is to focus on the fact that synchrotron radiation-enabled imaging widens our ability to respond long-standing critical questions, but it also enables us to ask new research questions with real impact in today's world. So, and together, of course, with other approaches, I'm a big proponent of correlated multimodal imaging in this context. So this is what we will be doing today in a nutshell, and let's launch into it without further ado. So we already briefly looked at what human bioarchaeology is. We can look at the different questions at different scales, population level, individual level, tissue level, and with synchrotron radiation, of course, we can bore down to minute details such as the distribution of heavy metals in ancient human hair, for example. And that will be one of the case studies that we will look at during this talk. So the remains of the past people, we can think of them as the most direct avenue to access information about their lives. Of course, there are other biological remains recovered archaeologically. Today, we will focus on human remains. A bit about synchrotrons, although the timing does not allow us to go into detail, I encourage you to have a look at further material available. Here's our synchrotron from the Cyprus point of view. We are members of the Sesame synchrotron. And interestingly, this facility opened its doors with beam time on human bioarchaeology. And it's a third-generation synchrotron light source, first in the Middle East and in the region. And it has the core techniques that we need for exploring human remains in particular from archaeological contexts. But I'll showcase also some work done elsewhere. So some of the challenges in this trajectory from archaeological site, you can see the small image on the top left. We literally retrieve our samples from the dirt. They have been there thousands of years in some cases. And moving from that excavation context through various laboratory analyses with increasing detail to synchrotron facilities is often an effort in translation as well as logistics. Many different types of expertise and teamwork is often required. It is a relatively recent activity in terms of particularly archaeological human remains being studied in these facilities. And sometimes we also need to roll up our sleeves and construct laboratory facilities, new facilities at national level before accessing synchrotrons. One of the requirements for gaining successfully through international peer review beam time at synchrotrons is that you have exhausted all possible laboratory techniques. And in our case, in Cyprus, we were very fortunate to be able to construct the Biomera platform with a laboratory source micro-CT at its heart, as well as other instrumentation and infrastructure that enables us to acquire structural imaging data prior to applying for synchrotron beam time. So here's just some details on that facility, and that's just to highlight the importance of being able to do that. And I think in this context, it's wonderful to have Euro-BioImaging as an opportunity for widening image data acquisition for communities even beyond the traditional focus or conventional focus of Euro-BioImaging. So some of the challenges for synchrotron radiation applications in human bioarchaeology currently include very basic things such as identifying the right approach. Archaeologists, human bioarchaeologists, not often conversant in the language of synchrotrons. Then there's the prior laboratory analysis, accessing the appropriate facilities, as already mentioned. Sample prep is another challenge, and expertise there is sporadic, and often the samples are very challenging as well as unique in the sense that standardization is very difficult. So experimenting with what works as to sample prep is required. Of course, the worst experiment is often something that curators want to avoid. We're looking at unique, irreplaceable samples from the past. So there are many challenges there. Data analysis, availability of expertise, and so on is another, as well as acquisition of representative number of data points. The beam time is limited, and so on. Another aspect which I find particularly rewarding is exploring frontiers together, pushing the limits of the techniques with very challenging samples, with their peculiarities coming from archaeological context, with all the diagenetic changes and so on, and trying to extract information that's relevant to past lives from these. And many of the new developments in synchrotron radiation techniques have been especially empowering in this quest for optimizing the data acquisition. And then, of course, we're talking about heterogeneous samples, and there the correlated multimodal imaging efforts are really critical. So let's look at some of these case studies so that you can get an idea of what kind of things we are busy with. And I thought that I will look at hair from two different angles. One of the things that I mentioned earlier is diagenetic changes, the preservation of material that we look at from archaeological contexts is paramount for evaluating the additional data that we get through other techniques. And here, what I wanted to do with my team members, and this work was done at Sesame, so I'd like to thank Sesame for the beam time that it awarded to us. This work was focused on Roman period ancient human hair from Heliopolis, from a very prominent individual. And on the left, you can see some of the imaging data. We used SRFTIR, synchrotron radiation Fourier transform infrared, to explore the preservation status of this hair, as well as, of course, light microscopy, SEM, and a number of other techniques, images of which you also see there. And on the top right, you can see the remains of the cranium of the individual with those reddish hair strands still adhering to the cranium. And that red coloration, by the way, would have not been the original color of the hair. And some of the questions that we explore relate to understanding the changes that cause such visual changes, but also evaluating, most importantly, the preservation status and alterations of organic compounds prior to putative destructive analysis that will give us information about, for example, diet through stable isotope analysis or ancient DNA analysis, and so on. So we have the process of biological degradation that goes on through the hundreds and thousands of years that material is in a burial environment, deposited in the burial environment, and we strive to understand these. And because of the rare nature of ancient hair and its higher analytical value, it has a timeline as it grows through time, so we can sample at different points. It is of high value to us, and we want to really be sure before any destructive analysis that we have a good chance of obtaining data through such analysis, and SRFTIR is a very important way of ensuring that. Here's just some images to show you the site and some details on the method. I will not go into that in great detail, but just highlight the importance of collaboration of different experts in ensuring that the data acquired is accurate and as precise as possible and pertains to the research question. So in this case, we have degradation of keratin, but there's clear potential for further analysis with techniques relying on organic compound preservation, such as looking at diet, ancient DNA, and so on, as well as other techniques that enable us to explore human metal exposure and geographical origins. So here I'd just like to obviously thank a large number of people and organizations that made this research possible, both in terms of funding as well as expertise, as well as time, of course, in the relevant facilities. Let's look at another technique and another key question for the human past. As you may know, the time periods that we use in archaeology to talk about various time periods in the past are often named, many of them are named according to metals. So Chalcolithic, that's a copper age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, and so on. So the adoption of metal and use of metal by humans is of very much key importance in the progress of and development of civilizations and the ability of populations to grow. So this comes, of course, not without a cost. We know of recent documented processes in Cyprus that, for example, extraction of copper can really lead to detrimental effects on human health. We know from Roman writers of similar detrimental effects to health, as well as use of some of the byproducts of copper mining in Cyprus for medical purposes. So one of the things that interested me on a site in Iran, Shahr-e-Sukhte, along what we now know as the Silk Route, was the metal processing and metal work on the site. And what you see second from the left is an image obtained by SR micro XRF mapping at the European Synchrotron radiation facility. It's beamline ID 21. It's a cross-section of ancient human hair, approximately 5,000 years old, from the site that you see images of on the screen. And the goal for me and my team was to localize metals in the hair. We were particularly interested in copper, as well as a number of other metals. And you see me with my Iranian colleague excavating the material on the site, which is near the border areas, eastern border areas in Iran, close to Afghan, Pakistan, Iran border areas. And the preservation is superb there because of desertification. So point being is metal exploitation, of course, helped humanity to progress, but also it had health effects. And we were interested in looking at, and I was particularly interested in looking at biogenetic versus diagenetic or environmental uptake of metals. So therefore, localization was critical. Multimodal approach with different techniques, and at a synchrotron facility, we obtained with these parameters critical data, as shown here on a number of individuals, particularly one standing out, a young 20 years old female that had particularly elevated levels of copper. Others did also, but this lady was particularly affected, and the localization gives us good confidence that this was biogenic uptake during life. And this leads to many key questions and contributes to key questions about specialization, use of metals, and so on. And just to highlight that this is a contemporary challenge as well in many parts of the world, and WHO draws attention to the effects of human metal exploitation, especially in these sort of contexts that you can see on the image. The acknowledgements, and let's look at future prospects, really getting out of the comfort zone in terms of archaeologists and looking into a representative number of samples. The key is also feeder facilities and training at feeder facilities such as the Biomera platform. And it has also relation to other projects that showcase and valorize cultural heritage in terms of bringing this to the public. The take-home message, so better answers to long-standing critical questions and being able to ask entirely new questions. And I'd like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you again. Thank you for the invitation to this very special edition of the Virtual Pub. Today, I would like to show you some potentials that X-ray computed tomography has in the study of the conservation state and the alteration of artworks and archaeological artifacts in general. So this is the outline of what we will see today. I would like to focus briefly on the archaeometry, that is a term that maybe not all of you are very familiar with. Then we will see why XCT can be so important in this kind of studies for us. I will show you the instrumentation that we have available to perform the analysis, and then we will see some case studies focusing in particular on the alteration and deterioration in different kind of materials and causes, and then we will draw some conclusion. So cultural heritage is comprehensive of incredible variety of items. Probably you first think about paintings and statues and vases and so on, but really anything can be cultural heritage. And all these items, of course, are made of something. So we also have a lot of different materials to study. And we study this material because we have some questions to answer, questions that arise from the archaeological studies or the artistic studies. And archaeometry is basically this, is an interdisciplinary field that studies this material data coming from the past with the tools and the methods that are characteristic of the scientific disciplines. Of course, it is really interdisciplinary, so we need the contribution of the scientific part, so physicists, chemists, and so on, but of course also from the humanities, and most of all from conservators and restorers that are the ones that actually do the job at the end. So why we can use XCT for our investigations? Well, it is a very important technique because it allows us to answer to many different questions and in a completely non-invasive way. So non-invasiveness is extremely important in the cultural heritage field. Basically one of the requirements from a lot of archaeologists and art historians. And so with computed tomography, we can answer, for example, the question, what material is it made of? So strictly speaking, XCT is not an elemental technique, but it can still provide some relative information on the materials that are composing our object on the basis of higher or lower atomic number, different density, different thickness. This is because the physical principle that stays behind the technique is the different X-ray absorption coefficients that are characteristic of the different materials. So everything goes back to this very simple law. So basically, if we send an X-ray beam on a material, on an object, X-rays are highly energetic, so they can pass through the object. But the intensity exiting the object will be lower than the one arriving on it because there is a partial absorption. And the exiting intensity will be depending both on the thickness of the object and, of course, on the material that relies on this coefficient. So probably you know how radiography works, and tomography is just the evolution of radiography, introducing a rotation. So basically we acquire different radiographies at different angles, and then with algorithms we can reconstruct the complete 3D volume. Other questions that we can answer are how was it done, or what is its conservation state, because with X-rays we can see inside the object. So we can see, for example, all the mechanisms, the joints, the hidden items inside the objects, and at the same time also the effects of deterioration, so holes, cracks, alterations, and all the damage that is maybe in progress, but we cannot see it from the outside. So computed tomography is borrowed from the medical imaging field, but we have an advantage working in cultural heritage because our patients are generally not living, so we can have higher energies, and we can also pass through very heavy materials. On the other side, one of the disadvantages might be that the objects that we have to work with can have really variable dimensions. So we also need to work with very big items, for example. And you see here the problem from a standard medical CT. You have the patient inserted in this structure where the source and the detector rotate around him or her. But this means that with this kind of setup, we can only analyze something that stays inside the volume of a person. Instead, if we have very large items, we cannot use this kind of technique. So in cultural heritage CT, we change a little bit the setup. The rotation is applied to the object. Instead, the source and the detector stay still and perfectly aligned all together. So these are the facilities that we have available. We basically have two. One is a large-scale CT that was built inside a restoration center, that is the Restoration and Conservation Center of La Venaria Reale near Torino. And this is a great advantage because it means that all the objects that have to be analyzed do not need to be removed from the facility, from the center. We can perform the analysis right there where they are about to be restored. Of course, for safety reasons, a custom-made shielded room was built. And you see that we can analyze very, very large objects. We can go up to 2.5 by 2.6 meters for the objects. Here we have a quite powerful X-ray source and a linear detector that is scanned to get to the image. Then, on the other hand, we have also a micro-CT that is instead at the physics department. In this case, we have a flat panel as a detector with a very small pixel size and also a microfocus X-ray source, again with a focal spot size that is only 7 microns. So this means that the combination of the system can give us very high resolution in the images, and for small objects we can also have something like 10 microns of voxel size. I will show you now some applications of this technique to several case studies that we encountered during the years. And actually, all these case studies were published recently in this article that is basically a review of all the works that we have seen, with a focus on the study of conservation state, decay processes, and also everything applied then to conservation strategies. So we can say that one of the main causes of damage is general use. If a thing is used, at some point it will break or it will ruin. And this is a clear example. You see here this ceramic rattle that was used by kids in the ancient times. It comes from Cyprus. And it was the museum curators were interested to understand the mechanism that produced the noise. So as you can see from the radiography, we couldn't understand a lot because all is made in ceramic. So the only differences we see in the contrast is due to the thicknesses that the X-rays are passing through. Instead, if we perform a complete tomography, you see that we can reconstruct the complete volume and then enter inside this rattle. And what we have seen is that actually there were 3 ceramic spheres, but one of them was already completely fragmented. And by sectioning the 2 remaining spheres, we have seen that some cracks already appeared inside of them. So for, let's say, preventive conservation, in this case, the suggestion was to stop shaking this object because otherwise it would break completely. Also, this kind of technique is useful to see very different materials combined and the effects of this combination. So, for example, here we had a wood flute, and for the analysis, we removed all the blocks, and especially we removed the brass key that was here inserted in the flute. Because metals generally also cause artifacts in the images, so we prefer to analyze only the wood. But what we have noticed from the analysis from the CT is that some parts of metals, so some metallic ions, have migrated and remained inside the wood. So you see here these very bright, very radiopaque parts that have been segmented, and you can see them also in the distribution in the 3D volume. So this is an effect of ion migration from the brass key to the wood. Of course, also we can see with the CT all the biological activity that goes on inside the object, and we do not see it from outside. Maybe we just see a small hole. This is actually one of the biggest objects that we have analyzed because it's 3 meters high. It was a writing cabinet from the 18th century, and it took 13 horizontal sections combined to get the full volume. And first of all, we noticed that it was composed by several blocks of different kind of wood. And one type of wood in particular was particularly favored by Xylophagous insect. So only in some blocks we saw this large amount of holes. And actually, by doing a segmentation of the single block, we have seen that there was a very dense network of cavities and trails done by the Xylophagous insects. And the same was also seen in this kind of artifact that is a coffin lid from an ancient Egypt coffin. You see from the video how the acquisition is performed for every sample. And also in this case, we have seen that some traces were left by these kind of insects, but quite localized, not considering the age of the artifact, it was not so diffuse. And then, of course, we have a wide range of environmental effects. These especially affect everything that is archaeological, because it stayed buried underground for a long time, and the interaction between the object and the environment is usually causing some kind of damage. So, for example, here you see an archaeological soil block. So this block was extracted from the archaeological site as you see it, and then it was performed a radiograph to see what was inside, and already some metallic parts were visible. Then the computed tomography was performed, and it was possible then to virtually extract this metallic belt that was inside the block, and actually it was completely fragmented due to the organic decomposition of the body that was wearing it and the pressure of the burial soil. But this was very useful because starting from the CT, restorers were able to account for all the very small fragments that compose the belt and then reconstruct it to its original shape. Also, glass is a kind of material that suffers a lot from environmental effects. This is archaeological Roman glass, for example, and this iridescent patina that was shown here and here was seen from the micro CT to have a very peculiar structure. So it is basically formed by this alternation of some material, less dense material than the glass, and air. And it is a very ordered structure, and this is the result of cycles of dissolution and reprecipitation of glass. And you see that with the high resolution of our micro CT, it was possible to discriminate all these packets. This is another example from another sample of the bulk, so the Aquileias glass. And in this case, for example, we had a very dense crack network, and it was possible to segment it. We were able to measure the extension of the cracks inside the object, the diameter of the cracks, and also we have been able to identify a secondary material inside the cracks that is less radiopaque than the original glass, and it is possibly hydrated silica, so another kind of alteration of the glass. Then we also studied this kind of beads. These are lapis lazuli beads. And you see from the maximum dimension, these are very small. So this dimension is 8 millimeters. And in this case, we were interested to study the pyrite crystals inside the beads that are these bright crystals you see in the slices, because we have seen that pyrite crystals in archaeological lapis lazuli very often suffers from alteration and transformation into oxide hydroxide minerals. And we were actually very happy with the result, because we've seen that with our resolution, we could identify the different radiopacities, so the pristine crystal and the alteration. So it was possible to segment it, measure the thicknesses. And what we have seen also are the presence of these cracks that goes inside the material, and actually might be the explanation of why we see this alteration also inside the lapis lazuli, not only on the surface. So these cracks are basically vehicles for the environmental humidity. And lastly, of course, we can also perform analysis on metallic artifacts. Not too big, because otherwise everything will be absorbed from the object, because metals are highly absorbent for X-rays. But this kind of small bronze arrowheads from Japan, from a mounded tomb, were analyzed with CT. And actually, it was very interesting because this arrowhead had a whole patina all on the surface. And the archaeologists thought that this patina could protect in some way the original bronze. But instead, when doing the CT, we have seen that inside a lot of corrosion was happening. So we had complete holes in the original bronze. And instead, the patina was almost complete, except for some small fractures or some small losses of material. So starting from that point, the corrosion continued to go on inside the object, mining its integrity and its stability. So just to draw some conclusions, we have seen that in the archaeometric field, the XCT can be applied to many cultural heritage items, and it can provide information both on the building techniques and on the conservation state. We have seen also it can be a huge support in the restoration processes. And we have also noticed that cultural heritage items are very particular, very unique, so often they need some special setups. And of course, each one is different, so we need also always a preliminary evaluation for the best analytical parameters. I have also to add that at least for our kind of analysis, both in acquisition and reconstruction, XCT can be a long and time-consuming technique. So generally, we try to only perform it when there is a real question that needs to be answered, even if, of course, the results are always very beautiful to see and very interesting. So thank you very much. Here you can have the direct links to the website of our research group and also to the publication that I've shown you before that collects all the results that you've seen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I'm very happy to share my research today. So the presentation will focus on non-invasive approaches for artworks analysis, specifically for paintings analysis. I will give you an overview on advanced optical methods, highlighting three optical techniques that we commonly apply at our laboratory. And then I will show you an emblematic case study. And finally, I will summarize some key insights that we gained during this research. So what is the aim of scientific analysis on artworks? It's to achieve a comprehensive knowledge on the object. And this is possible by acquiring chemical and physical information, mainly for documentation, monitoring, and preservation purposes. But when dealing with cultural heritage objects, as already said, it is important to preserve the object, so to not induce any damage. That's for sampling, contact, and alteration should be always avoided. And non-invasive optical techniques are very suitable for this kind of analysis. Paintings are very challenging for non-invasive analysis because they are extremely complex objects. They are multi-layered and they are composed of a variety of materials. Typically, we have a support that is made of canvas or wood. Then we have a preparation layer that is typically made of gypsum and animal glue. Over it, the artists usually in the past made some drawings, the so-called underdrawing, which are sketches that are used for the painting itself, that is realized with the different materials, so pigments, binding media. Sometimes the artists change their mind during their creation process and realize another painting, a different one, for example, or during time another artist can make some changes. Then the painting is covered with a protective layer of varnish, typically. Sometimes the painting undergoes deterioration, so it can be restored. but sometimes the restoring include also the retouching, and new elements can appear on the painting itself. When we apply optical techniques, we exploit the interaction between the material and the radiation, which is used as a probe, and we collect the response from the object that brings the information that we want. So we use optical radiation that have increasing penetration capabilities with increasing wavelength. The penetration is hindered by competing phenomena, which are absorption or scattering. Most of the times, the near-infrared radiation can reach the preparation layer, where it is partially absorbed by the materials that are used for the underdrawing, which are like graphite, carbon, something similar, and partially backscattered, reflected by the preparation layer. So for the analysis of paintings, for the non-invasive analysis of paintings, a multimodal approach is commonly applied. For example, three well-established techniques are used in combination. These are reflectance imaging spectroscopy, laser scanning microprofilometry, and optical coherence tomography. They can provide complementary information which can be integrated to achieve the comprehensive knowledge of the object. To start, reflectance imaging spectroscopy, we have developed a prototype, a multispectral scanner, which performs the scanning and whisk broom method on the painting. And the backscattered light is collected in the spectral range between 395 nanometers and 2550 nanometers, which is quite a broad spectral range. The output are 32 perfectly superimposed monochromatic images and spectral data for each point of the scanned surface. A typical application and post-processing of the image data cube is, of course, spectral analysis. The workflow is quite complex and time-consuming, but the objective is not only to identify technical details that are hidden, not visible to the naked eye, but also to identify the pigments presence and map their distribution. This is done by combining the information with other complementary techniques, such as X-ray fluorescence, for example. And we usually apply the spectral correlation mapping algorithm to map the pigments present. Laser scanning microprofilometry is an interferometric technique. We have this prototype at our laboratory, which is it is composed by a conoscopic probe mounted on a motorized linear stage. The measurement is performed with scanning again by high density sampling all the quota values of the surface, and the output is a high resolution topographic map. This map can be visualized as a simulated breaking light image, like in this case, we had the opportunity to analyze this famous drawing by Leonardo da Vinci. And this is the topographic map superimposed on the visible image. This topographic map is a 3D triangular mesh, which can be handled in specific software and measured. Another application of microprofilometry is roughness calculation. For example, here we have the titanium white paint layer. And this topographic map is post-processed in MATLAB environment by removing with proper filtering the low and high frequency components to calculate the room mean square roughness that is a micrometric features of the surface that can be used, for example, to monitor the morphological changes during time. Optical coherence tomography is another non-contact technique which provides stratigraphic information. It's based on a Michelson interferometer, and the output is a high-resolution cross-sectional image of the stratified objects, provided that the materials are semi-transparent to the radiation used. We have two prototypes at our lab, which uses two different laser wavelengths with different penetration capabilities. And the main application of OCT is the thickness measurement of coatings like varnishes. In this case, we can see perfectly the thickness of the synthetic varnish layer over titanium white paint, both in two-dimensional and three-dimensional views. Titanium white is not transparent to the radiation used, so it is not measurable in this case. But for example, in this case, the painting was transparent, so we were able to measure the thickness of the paint layer and also to visualize in the three-dimensional view the presence of the underdrawing, which was made with graphite. So the case study is a painting belonging to the Uffizi Gallery, dated back to the 16th century, attributed to Domenico Beceri. All the analyses were performed during the restoration campaign at the Opificio delle Pietrature, in collaboration with the scientific laboratory of the Opificio and also the National Institute of Nuclear Physics in Florence, who performed XRF mapping. I will focus on the results that we obtained with the optical techniques at our laboratory. Before our analysis, some microsampling was performed on this painting. Specifically, one fragment was analyzed in cross-section, and some question raised about the possible presence of an underpainting below this Holy Family scene, because two pictorial layers were observed. So first of all, we perform spectral correlation mapping on this painting. So we processed the image cube with this algorithm that calculates the spectral similarity between a reference spectrum, like in this case, smalt, malachite, and azurite, the similarity between all the spectra that are contained point by point in the spectral data cube. So what we obtain are maps of distribution of these pigments, in this case, smalt in red, in malachite in green, and azurite in blue, that combined together can give a composite spectral correlation map of these three pigments distribution. All the results were compared with elemental analysis performed by the National Institute of Nuclear Physics. And we use this approach, this spectral correlation mapping, to identify all the pigments mixtures present on the painting. So, for example, here in this area, we recognize the presence of lead white, vermilion, indigo, and lapis, because this is not sure due to the similarity, spectral similarity between these two pigments. And in all cases, all the analyzed areas resulted composed by quite complex mixtures of pigments, like it was usual in past time. The artists used to mix many pigments to obtain the hue that they wanted. So here we have, for example, the region of the sky and the distribution maps of the pigments present. The first insights into the presence of the underpainting was obtained with microprofilometry, and we acquired three topographic maps in these highlighted areas with high resolution. Here are the topographic maps superimposed on these details, And we were able to recognize the signs of covered brush strokes below the Holy Family scene. Here in this case, we have something similar to a bird's wing. And here, something that reminds a face and a woman breast and an eye. So we went deeper and acquire and post-process the image data cube with the principal component analysis. This is a combined false color image using the first principal component images. And here what we can see are the traces of spectrally diverse areas below the Holy Family scene. But we found that the near-infrared image that allowed for the best visualization of the underpainting was the image at 1830 nanometers. As you can see here, in these details, apart from the wing that we saw before, that was compared with the spectral coloration map of yellow ochre, we can see a lot of details that are highlighted here in red of a drawing or a painting that is different from the visible scene, of course. We can see also the traces of the drawing for the Holy Family scene, but there are also traces of something else. In this case again. Here we also were able to identify these orthogonal lines that are attributed to a grid that was commonly used by artists to transpose and resize subjects, graphical subjects, to the painting. Here's the total view. And this grid was found also on the preparation layer, which suggests that it was used not for the Holy Family, but for something below it. This is the combined reconstruction, the whole reconstruction that we were able to obtain through the combination of the three methods: microprofilometry in blue, the details are highlighted in blue, the near-infrared images and the principal component analysis are in red, and the spectral correlation mapping in green. This is clear that this subject is the representation of a mythological scene, Leda and the Swan. And this particular representation reminds the one that Michelangelo made in three versions: cartoon, a drawing, and a painting. The story of this artwork is quite curious and adventurous in a way, because Michelangelo made this artwork in 1530, but according to literature, during the centuries, both the drawing and the painting got destroyed because the subject was considered too explicit for that time. On the other hand, the fate of the cartoon remains an open question. Someone believes that the original cartoon is the one conserved at the Royal Academy of Arts in London, but the same cartoon is attributed to Rosso Fiorentino by others. There are also replicas, painted replicas, at the National Gallery of London and at the Correr Museum in Venice. But we found that the most similar replica to our reconstruction is the painting conserved at the Accademia Carrara in Bergamo, which is attributed to Francesco Umbertini, who was a student of Perugino. This painting is smaller and mirrored with respect to our reconstruction. But the presence of the grid suggests that maybe it was resized for the actual painting. And here you can see that there is a striking resemblance with the reconstruction. So this is possibly the position of the painting underneath, below the Holy Family. We wanted to know something more about the painting, the hidden painting. We would like to know if it was finished before the Holy Family was painted over it. So we used the spectral coloration mapping again, and we found that azurite and yellow ochre had the reference spectra, had a good correspondence with the swan wing and the drapery where Leda is lying. Another question was about the finishing of Leda's space, because it was impossible to see below, under the dress of the Virgin, the greenish dress, due to the optical opacity of this painting layer. So in this area, we performed OCT. So we acquired this tomograph, and we extracted the two-dimensional section, and we calculated the intensity profiles along the z-axis, and all these peaks are corresponds to interfaces between different materials. So we have air paint interface, paint and possible underpaint interface, and then the underpaint preparation interface. So in all the points that we measured, we found these three peaks that suggests that Leda space was also painted. So in conclusion, the reconstruction of Leda and this one was possible through the combined application of several non-invasive techniques, and through cross referencing and integration of all the results. So we were able to characterize the pigment mixtures, to visualize technical details, the underdrawing, the underpainting, detect micrometric features like cover brushstrokes, and also we investigated the level of finishing on Leda's face. In this way, the hidden painting was uncovered. I would like to thank the project that funded this research, Humanities and Cultural Heritage Italian Open Science Cloud, all the research groups that collaborated in this research, and the group where I work in, Heritage Science Group. And I would finally like to thank you all for your attention.
Thank you for inviting me this afternoon to join you for this rich session. And here we go. So Europe's rich culture includes artworks, monuments, and archaeological sites, and cultural landscapes. So they embody the continent's diverse identities. So they underpin the social cohesion, they support cultural and creative industries, and contributes to a shared European identity. So on this, E-RIHS is the European research infrastructure for heritage science, and it is an interdisciplinary distributed infrastructure which is aimed at advancing research and delivering cutting-edge solutions that enhance the understanding, preservation, and appreciation of cultural heritage. E-RIHS, established under EU law, was only conferred just almost 2 months ago, and it ensures its effective new operation across Europe and globally. So research infrastructures are central to the knowledge triangle of research, education, and innovation. So they play a pivotal role in advancing knowledge and technology. By providing high-quality service to users across borders, as E-RIHS does, we engage young researchers that help structure the scientific community and build an effective and inclusive research and innovation ecosystem. Supporting this development and efficient operation of such an infrastructure is a strategic priority for realizing the European research area and fostering open science and innovation. So the collaborative cross-disciplinary nature of the services exemplifies how E-RIHS can assemble critical masses of expertise, knowledge, and investment, and making them powerful engines for regional, national, and global process, especially in promoting international cooperation in heritage science. So E-RIHS, as I mentioned, is a pivotal role in advancing heritage science by providing access to top-tier laboratories, data and collections, paired with expert knowledge to tackle complex research questions. Through this interdisciplinary and intersectorial training, it nurtures the next generation of researchers. E-RIHS promotes open science and fair principles. It encourages co-creation between users and providers to enhance our service quality and fosters open innovation in conservation practices. By uniting leading EU facilities into a single cohesive infrastructure, it absolutely strengthens Europe leadership and global conservation practices. So E-RIHS has been built and funded by multiple European projects over the last 20 years. So you can see some of them mentioned actually here below. We offer unique hybrid research infrastructure that provides an integrated and centrally managed access to a variety of different platforms to fulfill the needs of our many users, who can come from public institutions, research and different project teams, individual researchers as well, practitioners, and even from the private sector. So these platforms provide access to a range of facilities, resource, and data. This is MoLab. MoLab provides portable instrumentation. This mobile instrumentation is for non-invasive measurements. So we work on site and on sites. Fix Lab provides large-scale and advanced laboratory facilities, and they're established in a fixed location, in comprehensive of synchrotrons, for example. ArcLab instead provides the physical and local digital archives for heritage science. And that's that there. So we also have a new platform which is called DigiLab. And this DigiLab platform, to an increasing extent, providing the digital services which are desperately needed in research infrastructures. So their services making them more accessible and enabling collaboration among users across the scientific domains and geographical boundaries. So the digital and data tools in the new digital platform aims to enhance this knowledge creation, and while at the same time ensuring data interoperability and compliance with FAIR principles in line with the European Open Science Cloud. So there has been a marked increase in publications in heritage science employing imaging techniques. So this reflects actually the growing recognition of their value in non-invasive analysis. This trend highlights both the community's evolving needs for precise data-rich investigations and the drive to integrate state-of-the-art instrumentation into research workflows and protocols. The adoption of advanced imaging supports more rigorous material characterization, documentation and monitoring, aligning with the broader shift towards digital, reproducible, and interdisciplinary approaches in cultural heritage studies. So since 2009, imaging techniques have actively become a part of the service offer of E-RIHS and its previous projects in recognition of our users' needs in the community and the advancement of cutting-edge research. Within this context, imaging analysis services are a key E-RIHS activity. So these services enable non-invasive, high-resolution documentation and analysis of cultural assets, where we support conservation, historical research, and public engagement. By offering access to advanced imaging tools, such as multispectral, hyperspectral, infrared, and X-ray imaging, E-RIHS aims to assist heritage scientists to unlock the hidden information, to monitor the degradation and preserve cultural fragile artifacts. Imaging techniques presented in the E-RIHS catalogue of services are organised across different platforms, each offering specific tools and methodologies tailored to various aspects of heritage science. ArcLab, as we can see here, grants access to scientific information, as I mentioned before, and data sets from archives of European museums and research institutions. While they don't directly offer imaging techniques in our catalogue of services, it does provide valuable contextual data that can complement imaging analysis. So DigiLab, as our emerging platform, aims at providing online access to digital data and tools for heritage science. So it will facilitate the sharing and analysis of imaging data generated by MoLab and FixLab, for example, supporting their collaborative research and their innovation. So MoLab, its strength lies in its mobility and its full non-invasive approach, allowing on-site access to cultural heritage objects without the need for transport or physical sampling. Its imaging techniques enable both surface and subsurface diagnostics. Surface analysis can help identify and map pigments, surface coatings, and alterations, while subsurface investigations reveal features hidden beneath the visible layer, such as preparatory drawings, earlier paint layers, or compositional changes. So this is a dual capacity supporting a comprehensive understanding of the object's stratigraphy, its condition, and its history, all while preserving its integrity. FixLab instead provides access to large-scale, high-end analytical facilities, which offer advanced high-resolution imaging techniques for in-depth material characterization. So these techniques are typically stationary and require samples or objects to be brought to the facility. So the imaging services can include neutron and X-ray imaging, radiography, tomography, so which allow research in our field to non-destructively visualize internal structures or hidden components of heritage objects. FixLab enables comprehensive insights into the complex material systems with exceptional precision. So this is what our E-RIHS ERIC catalogue look like. It's currently being amplified with existing and improved services for the beginning, as I said, of the new operational stage of the permanent research infrastructure. Of the approximately 100 services that we have included until now, around 25% of these are actually based on imaging. So acknowledging our user requirements and of the community and supporting leading edge scientific progress. So when selecting an imaging technique for cultural heritage analysis, what is important? So all of these different columns and information that I'm sharing in this table. So the penetration depth, the object type, what kind of desired outcomes are key considerations. So surface imaging methods, for example, like multispectral imaging or reflectance transformation imaging. So ideal for faded text, surface textures, and pigment identification. For subsurface analysis, so infrared reflectivity can reveal underdrawings and paintings. So while OCT, as we heard before, offer micrometer resolution across cross-section for information on varnish and glaze layers. So for deeper penetration, X-rays and neutron tomography are suited to analyzing the internal structures of dense or composite objects like ceramics or metal artifacts, for example. But what is important is that each technique offers specific insights. So if you want to know about material composition, you want to know about the construction or preparation methods, but they also have limitations, as I've also shown in that table as well. So therefore, a multimodal approach combining different techniques with varying depths and sensitivities is often necessary to obtain a comprehensive understanding of the object while ensuring non-invasiveness and preservation. So thus overcoming challenges so as to respond to specific research questions. So imaging techniques harness often different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. so from UV or to X-rays. So we're going to reveal both visible and hidden features of artifacts. Each spectral range offers unique diagnostic capabilities. And these non-invasive methods provide layered information about materials, techniques, and the condition of the artwork. So when they're combined, they support the conservation and the research, offering powerful multi-scale understanding of the object without obviously physical intervention. So E-RIHS supports the selection of multiple techniques, combining imaging with spectroscopy methods across the different platforms for a tailored approach to the scientific excellent research projects. So I'm going to show you now a few projects and some of our outcomes. So this project was carried out in the framework of the E-RIHS project. It conducted an extensive non-invasive study of the iconic hunt frieze on the tomb of Philip II in Vergina in Greece, which was aimed to uncover the lost iconographic elements and original colors obscured over time. So using advanced imaging and analytical techniques via the MOLAB platform, the project revealed significant new insights into materials and imagery. So a wide range of state-of-the-art techniques was shipped to the site, and they were employed to study then the frieze. So key methods including the macro XRF, infrared, X-ray diffraction mapping, high resolution hyperspectral near, remote imaging techniques were also employed. So they are actually deployed at a distance. So they were highly innovative, yes, to the collection of instrumentations included in the E-RIHS. So the instruments do play a crucial role by enabling a detailed analysis across the entire surface without the contact and maintaining the integrity of the actual artwork. So in this slide, I'm showing you the real-time fast mapping and scanning techniques on site, so to enable a rapid acquisition of large surface areas. So if we can imagine the size, the sheer size of this hunt frieze, we can actually understand that the methods, so they often involve capturing detail or data in small sections, which then can be digitally stitched together to create a continuous and detailed image. So as for example, details from hyperspectral imaging. So if we can combine with elemental data, as in this case, in the red area, the cloak of this figure. So an iron-rich ochre could be mapped. So it provided a better understanding of the material composition and distribution, for example, of this pigment. So the ochre was also found mixed with an organic purple. So beyond this visible, it's also possible to see what we can't see by eye. We can see in this image that there is a wreath, this crown, and it was observed by hyperspectral imaging. It was confirmed also to be using XRF, macro XRF, that it was composed of copper and arsenic-rich pigment, such as conic calcite. So all of this information together, so we had the different kind of analysis, and putting them all together does give a good and more richer experience of the entire composition. Whether or not we're talking about even getting information on its conservation state and its presence of degradation products, as well as getting further information about restoration products as well. So the first full colored reconstruction of this frieze, so the primary visual reference of the original, so the one at the top is the one that has been used since 2004 to illustrate any scholarly publications on ancient Greek art. So the first investigations, which followed in 2013, were able to have this information that we can see, the reconstruction, we can see on the bottom there, but we were able to provide further information, so to recognize a larger and a varied palette of pigments, and gave rise to a more faithful view of the artist's palette, which is now possible through this reconstruction. So this reconstruction then actually from last year in 2024 of the hunting frieze. So I'm going to speak very briefly. This was another project, and I'm glad we also have our user who is here with us today. So Laura already spoke, and she mentioned about lapis lazuli as well, and she came through the Hyperion CH and Hyperion HS projects. So she was using ion beam analysis in the investigation of lapis provenance, and this was carried out by the E-RIHS French group and the new Aglai partner facility in the framework of the projects that I mentioned. So the use of micropixie, so it's an advanced ion beam technique used for elemental imaging at the micrometer scale. So a focused proton beam could scan the sampled surface, inducing the emission of characteristic X-rays from elements present in the material. So these X-rays are detected and used to generate high-resolution elemental, so distribution maps. So this provenance analysis of lapis, so it was challenging due to its complex composition. So over 30, at least if I remember correctly, mineral phases. So lazurite is the key blue-colored mineral, and it's from the sodalite group, and it's most characteristic. So, but it does include other minerals, pyrite diopside and calcite, which appear in different amounts. So what was ion beam analysis able to do for it? So of the specific phases, including diopside and wallensteinite and pyrite, IBA, so the iron beam, so has proven the effective way that is able to distinguish some lapis lazuli from different quarry sources. So a revised analytical protocol was developed to include other quarried lapis lazuli, so based on the ion beam analysis. So the study was published early in, I think, around 2023, and it has stimulated further research, and there's been more recent publications and further research on this topic, which has been published even this year. So this is another application. So the Museum of the Civil Museum in Rome, so it holds 5 Mesoamerican turquoise mosaics, together with 12 other mosaics from the European Museum's collection. So these groups constitute the most relevant group of existing Mesoamerican mosaics in Europe. So they were brought to Italy in 1532, 1533 as a gift to the Pope and other important Italian personalities. So these are actually labeled Aztec turquoise mosaics, although their attribution to the Aztec or Mixtec cultural sphere is actually uncertain. So material-wise, turquoise mosaics are very complex multi-material objects, where turquoises represent only a part of the many different tesserae. Furthermore, it has to be said that the name turquoise refers to 2 different classes of compounds. Those that are chemically turquoises, that is hydrated copper aluminium phosphates, and that is hydrated copper aluminium phosphates, and those that are considered turquoises from a cultural point of view, but not chemically copper phosphates. So thanks to the access to the state-of-the-art laboratories, facilities, and related competences offered by E-RIHS, the 5 mosaics at the museum were thoroughly investigated through an integrated multimodal analytical approach using all the instrumentations that you can see in the different photos there. Tomographic and 3D modeling analysis, which have been used to gather the structural information on the object, provide information on the indigenous manufacture. But they also do provide good documentation and can be very useful for the communication purposes or even in the occasion of exhibitions. UV luminescence imaging was exploited to gather information on the mosaics. So apart from an orange fluorescence visible where the tesserae fell off, indicating a localizing of the original adhesives used to glue them on the wooden and bone support. The UV luminescence highlighted the presence of consolidation treatments on some cracks and also on the diffuse patina due to restoration resin, which was applied in the 1990s and which was identified by infrared as paralloid. So despite its absence of specificity in identifying perhaps the chemical composition of the minerals and of the other materials used as a tesserae, this actually helped guided in the other analysis. So we can see that some tesserae are completely dark under UV light, while others have different properties, indicating a different chemical composition. We can see all of those. Attempts were made by applying hyperspectral imaging in both the visible and the near range, but in the near range instead, so the peaks are very different and sharp, and the mapping attempt to differentiate and localize different types of turquoise seems quite promising. But the three end members selected all come from the same tessera and indicate a variability of the mineral phases and highlight actually the challenge in fully characterizing the chemical composition of the actual turquoise and its materials. I'm going to show you another interesting case study. This is on textiles. So this case study is from a 1990s silk kimono, and it's held at the Victoria and Albert Museum, the textile collection. And it was noticed that the green background was, there we go, if you can see this green background, it was noticed that it was discovered to have undergone a particular kind of fading. So this was kind of noticed following an exhibition under halogen and LED lighting. And as part of a European project, Perceive and associated partners, E-RIHS provided on-site analysis to understand this fading phenomenon and to provide an explanation when all the standard exhibition guides were followed. So they had 50 lux per day. So we wanted to see exactly what was happening there. So we brought our instrumentation, and coupled then with laboratory research and the artist's notes, it was found that under the folds within the kimono, so the green color was made of yellow flavonoid based dye, and this was over dyed with indigo, and it was notably fading. So using reflectance visible hyperspectral imaging, it could provide us information, and we were able to map the indigo, as you can see in that central image, and we could see more and less faded areas by using UV-induced fluorescence instead. So the emission of the yellow dye could be observed. And it was more evident, obviously, in the most faded yellow areas. So it was observed following the preparation of dedicated mock-ups that the indigo protects the actual yellow dye and that the exhibition lighting did not cause this degradation. So it was noted, however, that LED lighting over long time periods can subject sensitive collections to photodegrade. So specifically for the indigo in this case, considering that what we did notice that was our study stopped at 2.5 years of artificial aging, and we didn't achieve this type of fading, which is seen here. So this is the application of near-infrared and shortwave infrared imaging systems. So powerful tools for recovering ancient, fading or erased, in this case, Greek texts. So by applying different acquisition modes, researchers can enhance the contrast between perhaps ink and substrate, even when the writing is visible to the naked eye. So this kind of approach allows for the detection of subtle spectral differences, maximizing the legibility and revealing the hidden or overwritten content, thus offering a valuable insight into historical manuscripts. So if we can see what we were noticing before, so this is what we can see following post-processing using PCA. So the imaging does exactly improve the readability of the ancient text by enhancing any subtle differences between ink and any substrates, overcoming challenges, including spectral noise, ink substrate similarity, and the difficulty in interpreting the PCA components. Oh, I apologize. I'm just going to go very fast 1 second to tell you the innovations in the E-RIHS catalog now include a broader range imaging. So the HI-90 by Bruker's, an advanced hyperspectral imager, operates in the mid-infrared, and it's able to provide compositional images of great value for artworks, knowledge, and conservation. So it's a highly diagnostic spectral range and going beyond pigment identification and their distribution. So to unveil the nature and distribution of the organic materials and the degradation products, as can be seen in this slide as well. So E-RIHS is also another hyperspectral imaging instrument. It's for combined scanning measurements using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy and UV Visnier, reflectant spectroscopy. So scanning enables the multi-elemental mapping of large areas of the surface of an artifact in a non-invasive way. And similarly, then using the Visnier reflectance allows the acquisition of the hyperspectral images, providing information on the distribution and actual chemical nature of the pigments, and more generally of the inorganic components. So we see the electronic bands, the harmonic and combination vibrational bands, as well as organic components. So the information obtained by the two techniques is collected in a combined manner for each point of the scanned surface, integrating elemental chemical information with the further valuable for the use of polychrome surfaces and potential underdrawings or inks in historical documents. So all of the information that I have shared with you is available in the section on our website, which is dedicated to celebrating and recognizing the contributions and the impact on the user community. So it features our scientific results and highlights our user engagement and their experiences and the collaborative spirit that enriches the platforms of E-RIHS. So I thank you for your attention, and we look forward to supporting your research through our integrated platform and community. So for any inquiries, please contact us. Thank you.